Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bitwig Studio and Music Production. This is lesson 3.49, and in this lesson, we're going to try and tackle the gate device. So when gates were first originally developed, the idea was basically what it says. A gate either lets audio pass or it doesn't. If the gate is closed, no audio gets through. If the gate is open, it lets the audio through. And of course, we have a couple of simple parameters to help control that. The classic example of the gate is if you have a vocalist and they're singing and they're recording in a room with the rest of their band. So there's the drummer playing in one corner, the guitar player is playing somewhere else. They've probably tried to maximize the acoustic space. One big issue is with a vocalist singing and with the microphone on the entire time, they're going to pick up a ton of bleed from other instruments, not only in sections where the vocalist isn't singing, but even in short breaks. So if you have a vocal phrase and then you have a pause for a couple of seconds and you come back in, all that bleed is going to be picked up. And in the olden times, you'd have to really go through there and manually, if it's like tape cutting or something, it could take a really long time. In the digital domain, it's a lot easier to just kind of go in and cut things and trim them, but people still want to make things as easy as possible for themselves. And so that's really what the gate device is used for in a very traditional setting. In another setting, it can be used to actually just get rid of certain parts entirely. So if we have our drum loop playing right now, let's see what I can do to set this up. If I turn the threshold all the way up with the depth all the way up, we're not going to hear anything. Why is that? Well, the depth control is indicating just how much the signal should be turned down when the gate is closed. Right now, this is like the Great Wall of China. We are totally shut and we're really high, so the wall is impenetrable. As I pull down the depth, we're actually going to let a little bit of bleed in, and sometimes that's not a bad thing in a traditional recording environment. You don't want to sound unnatural. It's actually nice to get bleed from time to time. So I could pull this back just a little bit, and we'll start to get some of that signal back in. Let's go far enough where you can actually hear it. For now, I'm going to turn all the way off. The threshold control, this is going to kind of lower our wall. As I pull this down, it's going to let some of the drum sound through. So right now it's only letting through the peaks. And imagine if this was a vocalist, only those really loud screams or the sibilants in their voice would be getting through at this point, only the transients. And you can really hear that with the fact that the kick drum is the only thing coming through. Let's see if I can just isolate the kick drum. All right, so I'm struggling to do that. And perhaps that has to do with our attack and release settings. The attack and release settings are the most important settings on the gate control. This determines how fast the gate is opening and how fast it's closing. Attack, how quick it opens after it's reached that threshold. Release, how fast it closes after it's, again, lowered beyond that. So I can set this right now wide open. And if our attack and release settings are all the way up like this, the gate is really never going to have a chance to operate because the release is so long. So let's pull this release back, and you'll hear instantly. And by using the release control, I've pretty much been able to isolate some of these kicks, and occasionally the snare and some other things. Now, if my attack setting is too high, the kick is actually going to breach the threshold, but because my attack is so long, the majority of the kick is already going to play and it's not even going to open. So instead of hearing the kick, we're going to hear the sounds right after it. You can kind of tell. Right, we're getting just the end of that kick. So I would probably want my gate to be as fast as possible if I could catch the start of that kick. And again, if I want a little bit of bleed, I can pull the depth knob down. So here's our full loop without the gate. And then with the gate in. So now let's talk about the sidechain function. And I think this might have been something that they just put in the latest update. I really don't know why, because there are workarounds for sidechain inside of Bitwig Studio. But in essence, sidechain is going to operate the gate based on an external audio input, meaning that the gate will only operate when another channel has like crossed that threshold. The best way to explain this is to just actually kind of do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the chord, and I want the chord to either be on or off based on what's happening with a drum loop. So let's set this up. I'm trying to think about how to do this properly. Let's just delete the gate here and start over. So I'm going to have this chord playing, and I'm going to drop a gate on here. Right now, the gate is reacting to the chord. So I could get it to do something if I get the threshold just right, but for the most part, this is a pretty steady sound. So I have to really struggle to get this to do anything. And when I do, it doesn't sound very good. And that's because there's not a whole lot of transients going on. There's not a whole lot of peaks and dips. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But where this gets crazy is if I use the sidechain. My apologies, guys. Either I'd set the wrong thing in the sidechain, or we just had a pretty serious glitch. But for some reason, it wasn't working. Now it's working. So let's play it back, and I'll show you guys how this works. So again, the chord device is now going to be either on or off. The gate is going to be opening and closing based on what's happening with this drum loop and how we set the gate up. So we can turn all the way off if our threshold is too high, and we can up the depth. Then we get nothing, which I don't like. Let's get a little bit of signal. Now let's pull this threshold back and come up with some interesting little patterns. So right now, only those really hard hits are triggering our little chord sound. And maybe we want to up the attack a little bit so that they're not competing, so that if I put the attack up, the chord is going to wait for the really hard hit of the drum to come in first. Oh yeah. Shorten it up. Or we can get a little bit longer pattern. If we pull the threshold all the way down, we'll just hear the chord all the way through. So you can hear just how much fun and how cool that can be. People will use this all the time in dance music, and then there is the concept of using dummy clips. What are dummy clips? Dummy clips are basically a clip that you're going to have an audio track with signal. A lot of times people will use a kick drum, something that they know is going to trigger the gate. So you might have a kick drum pattern like boom, ba boom, boom, ba boom, 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 ba boom, boom, ba boom, boom, boom. And then what you'll have is a sustaining pad. Instead of the pad just playing all the way out, it will also play to that boom, ba boom, boom, ba boom, boom, boom pattern. How can we do that inside of Bitwig Studio? Well, let's see. If I play this back and I mute my time and duration track, something's not working. Something is not right. We're not getting that pattern anymore. And the reason for that is because we are running in post-fader mode, and post-fader is taking into account this mute button. If I turn this to pre-fader though, let's hear what happens. Check that out. And with the gate off, and back on. So you can hear that with this drum loop, it's not the best example in the world, but for example, if you wanted to, what I'd recommend is like taking the snare here and we could come up with like a crazy pattern, and maybe I'll do it real quick just so you guys can hear it. All right, so here's a little snare pattern I've made, and now if we run this through with the chord, sometimes it's also a little bit of fun to throw a reverb on here too. Just for kicks, right? Let's do it. You can hear how that reverb tail is then getting affected after the fact. Without the gate, this is what it sounds like. Definitely could use some EQ after that. So you can see just how much fun you can very easily have there just messing around with some of our built-in tools here. And when you listen to that original chord sound, you would have never imagined that we could come up with something like that using just a few different devices and a little bit of creativity and ingenuity. So thank you guys for watching, and you'll hear from me again in the next lesson. Take care.